Call the January 24th, 2023 Ramsey County Board of Commissioners to order. Roll call, please.
Brother.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Moran.
Here.
Ortega. Reinhardt.
Here.
Jean.
Here.
And Matas Castillo.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I'm going to now turn to Commissioner Reinhardt for our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We are standing on the ancestral lands of the Dakota people. We want to acknowledge the Ojibwe, the Ho-Chunk, and the other nations of people who also call this place home. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the treaties made by the tribal nations that entitle non-Native people to live and work on traditional Native lands. Consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. We have the agenda for January 24th, 2023 presented for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Brother.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
And Matas Castillo.
Aye. We have the minutes from January 17th, 2023 presented for approval.
So second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Brother.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
And Matas Castillo.
Aye. I'm going to turn to Commissioner Reinhardt for our administrative items, and I'll just start by saying I want to pull number 3.
Okay. Number 4, the project account for talent priority. I'll move number 5, the updated board meeting cancellations in 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Brother.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Moran.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
And Matas Castillo.
Aye. Now we'll return to item 3.
Madam Chair, I would like to move the 2023 Capital Improvement Program Bond Ordinance.
Excellent. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm pulling this item because it's slight change in the way we've done business in the past, and I thought this would be an opportunity for our CFO, Alex Kutza, to share what those updates are. Thanks, Alex.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The Chair is correct. This is almost every year we come forward this time of year to bring our bond sale, and we set a date for that sale. And we actually did that last week. We said we're going to sell, this is a 2023 A series, which is a $19 million bond issuance. This year we came back with the parameters. This is a parameters resolution for your consideration. And the reason is the parameters resolution allows us flexibility on the date of our sale. So as many of you know, the stock market has been slightly volatile, and things in the economy like the Fed's meeting or something like that can really change the market. And so having flexibility on the date that we sell our bonds helps us make sure that we get the best interest rate for Ramsey County and our taxpayers. So what this does is set parameters that would allow the board chair, or in her absence, the vice chair, the county manager, and the CFO to get together once we have bids and decide if it fits within these parameters, which are $19 million worth of bond issuances, no higher than a 5% interest rate, and maturity of the bonds no later than February 1st, 2043. Then we can sell the bonds. If it's not within that parameters, we would come back to this board for additional authority. So I just wanted to point it out because it is different than before. Many of our peer jurisdictions do this regularly. Hennepin regularly does this, as well as the city of St. Paul. I will, for the 2023B bond issuance, which is the $40 million, we will be doing the same thing given the volatility in the market right now. So you can look for that in February. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Any questions? All right, very thorough. Thank you. We'll go to roll call, please.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
Jean,
Aye.
Freda,
Aye.
McGuire,
Aye.
Moran, Ortega,
Aye.
and Matas Castillo.
Aye. Next, we're going to do our legislative update. I first want to say thank you to everyone who was able to participate in our delegation meeting yesterday at the Capitol. We had many legislators who either stayed the whole time or passed through during their busy time to connect with us. We had a lot of senior staff and policy experts from the county, so thanks for all who were able to attend. I think it was a really good turnout, a good conversation, and the right balance between deep policy issues as well as just deeper conversations and relationship building. So I appreciate that very much. We covered issues like obviously our top three: bonding, county program aid, homelessness. We also talked about the clean energy bill and our concerns there to make sure that we can implement it here at Ramsey County, as well as new legislation that is being introduced around gun violence. The gun violence bill that is being introduced and jacketed right now is related to us having the ability to ban guns in our facilities. This is in response to the shooting at the Jimmy Lee Rec Center. And so we're working together with the mayor of St. Paul and the St. Paul policy team, as well as our St. Paul delegation and Ramsey County delegation, to get that done. We hope to have it introduced this week to be able to lift that ban, to be able to do that. And then we also wanted to just shift gears. The governor is rolling out many budget bills right now, and more will come out today, but just wanted to share some highlights that we expect to see the last details on our homeless dollars, transportation, and county program aid. Yesterday, the governor and lieutenant governor were in Roseville at the fire department to announce a new public safety aid, which sounds interesting, of course, to those of us who actually provide public safety services to the public. This would be a new aid of $300 million, and part of it seems to be based on population, which is good for dense counties like ours. There's more to come, some more interesting stuff. We did see historic investments in housing. I think the total was $1.5 billion recommended. None of that was directly to Ramsey County, but through the agency, and we'll continue to lift up our needs and the work that we are doing. And lastly, tomorrow I'll be testifying on property taxes at the House Property Tax Committee, along with the Association of Minnesota Counties, to talk about county program aid. I also want to go to the table if anyone else has updates or things they want to share on the legislative items. Yes, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just want to say also kudos, great job. You did a wonderful job chairing that meeting yesterday with our legislative delegation, and thanks to everyone who put it together. It was great. It was great to see the legislators there over their lunch hour, and thanks to Jennifer O'Rourke and Melissa who helped put that together. It was great to see the legislators that were there. I also want to say that as the president of AMC, we've now gotten into a pattern, which I think is a great one, of sending a letter signed jointly by myself and by Todd Patzer, who is the most recent past president of AMC, who's from Lackaparle County, which is a small county in western Minnesota, to show that we are united as AMC in our issues. And we've sent a letter on housing and homelessness, and we just sent a letter on the county program aid. So we're signing jointly these letters of support to the governor, to the legislature, to show that counties are unified in their requests for these dollars. So thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. Anyone else? I just want to thank all of you. I know you all have been doing lots of meetings and working with our legislative body, and I really appreciate the work as they're moving quickly, and you all are responding very quickly, so I appreciate that. Next up, we'll turn to County Connections. County Manager O'Connor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. 3 updates today. In CFO Kutz's update here on the on the bond issuances, building into that, there's this huge process behind the scene that takes place. So we have our rating agency calls They're kind of like grading periods you could think of with the agencies. We had meetings last week with Standard & Poor's and Moody's. I want to thank the finance team for their work on that, and as well as the property tax assessment team for their work on that. It takes a big team effort. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. And it's a moment where if you sit through them, you sweat through them a little bit, you see how much they look at every entity around, and they really ask questions, and they look at where you've been historically, and they look at your governance, and they look at your broader community, and they ask tough questions. And so we'll come back and talk about some of those findings when they issue a final rating determination that then ties to your bonds. But the continued having a strategic direction as a county is always a big deal. And then how that strategic direction applies to your budgeting and day-to-day management is a huge deal. There are other things that are a big deal, but that is a big part of where the conversation rests. And on a day in which the board's going to do some strategic planning and continue that work forward, I want to lift that up and commend that. But for that work, I think rating calls could go a lot different. And I think people would say, so what are you moored to as what guides you day to day as the work around you becomes chaotic? So hopefully good news to come. And we now wait on the next steps. But I want to thank everyone who led to the prep work. Yesterday morning, we had the Joint Property Tax Advisory Committee meeting as well over at the St. Paul Schools. Commissioner Moran and Commissioner Modis Castillo were there. I'm not forgetting anyone, right? Okay, I was a little worried there when I wrote my notes, so I'm just going to announce it out loud and admit my own fear. And we met with the school district and city staff for a conversation that both revolved around legislative priorities, talking about local government aid and children and families, and just the deep need and importance of doing this work now in a moment of plenty from the state surplus perspective. It's a moment that I think back on in 15 years of working in counties government in Minnesota, I have not been a part of anything anywhere like that. It's always been a very different environment. The schools talked about their need. The city and county asks in many ways very much align around issues related to local government aid, county program aid, riverfront development efforts, et cetera, et cetera. But really great job by the legislative staff. That was the tightest and clearest we've had in one of those meetings before. And then we also focused on the joint debt book that is issued by the 3 jurisdictions per GIP tax guidelines. And so the book looks at numbers of what is the annual debt burden on each household in the city of St. Paul, because these are the 3 taxing jurisdictions. It's the only 3-entity measurement like this in the state. And so it is both something worth looking at and also a little bit challenging always because you have no context for what it would mean for a taxpayer in Roseville, let alone a taxpayer in Moorhead. You know, you're just, it's a number unto itself. That being said, the conversation yesterday was extremely useful on 2 levels. One, the history has been to develop this joint debt measure, probably because at one time debt was the thing everyone was most scared about as a measure of overall of tax capacity. And it still is a significant number. And you see things within it. As the schools, buildings have aged, you see their debt increasing significantly relative to the city and the county. But when we think about tax burden generally, it's about more than debt. Debt issuances, $19 million we're asking for in these Series A bonds. We have an $800 million operating budget. I think $400 million of that almost is on the levy. And so it's like we're only looking at $19 million in that joint debt piece. The ask was to talk more broadly about the joint burden of local property taxes, debt being one component of that at future meetings, and then benchmark that to other areas across the state. I think there's a lot of value in doing that. I think the legislature would value being able to understand and see that, at least from one community's perspective. But I also think it helps everyone around this table in conversations around understanding property tax burden over time relative to the overall valuation in your community, what's happened in recent years compared to other years. I want to thank the commissioners that were there as a part of that conversation. But we left with a clear path on something, and for those who have sat around the GIP TAC table over time, it's not a body that we asked necessarily to have, and so figuring out how to make it useful and relevant has been an ongoing piece, and it feels like with the help of finance leadership from our organization and others, we really do have a path there moving forward. And then finally, on a good news front, I just wanted to highlight that later this week, we're sitting down at a high level to talk about an organizational meeting of the Joint Development Authority with Arden Hills and Ramsey County. An organizational meeting I would use as lowercase letters because there's not a chair yet that's been named to the Joint Development Authority. But it signifies the the work to try to continue moving forward on a project that has had its challenges over time as discussions have happened, and then the pandemic occurred in the middle as well. And through work with Commissioner Fretham and Commissioner Reinhardt, in conversation with the council members from Arden Hills, there's been an ask to pull together an organizational meeting which allows for conversation around baseline of shared values moving forward, other pieces of foundational elements that need to be in place. And you may remember in communication that went to the city from Ramsey County a number of years ago, the conversation was, it's not about technical details at this point. We're missing the foundational pieces that we need to be aligned on for something as complex and significant as this. And so it's a good step to be in a spot where we continue to work on trying to reestablish a strong foundation from which to do our work. There are many steps to come. There's no shovel hitting the ground tomorrow for anyone listening to this piece here, but it starts with partnership, it starts with trust, and it starts with the idea of shared values. And so we look forward to that later this week, and thanks to the commissioners who have been a part of pulling that together.
Excellent.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, County Manager O'Connor. Appreciate that. We're going to go around the table and give our outside committee reports. Commissioner Moran, I'll start with you.
You know, I don't really have a report.
That's okay.
I mean, we touched base on the JPTAC, whatever.
Yeah. You got it.
Let's rename it. It might be better then.
Yeah. That's all good. No report is just fine. That's great. Commissioner Zhang.
Not a report from any committees, but also just a community celebration of the Lunar New Year at the Mall of America this Saturday. I was able to represent the county, so
Thank you.
made remarks over there and just shared with them about, just blessings for the new year. So it's usually a time for folks to come together, for families to come back together and celebrate the new year of spring that's coming slowly on its way, right? But it's coming.
It's coming. Thank you, Commissioner Zhang. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few things. The St. Paul had their Welcome to St. Paul celebration on Tuesday night that I think a number of us were at, and it was a great welcome to the legislators to St. Paul and Ramsey County. Many of us were there, and it was a great time to welcome our legislators here. So that was good. And then our Association of Minnesota Counties, we had our organizational meeting, our executive committee met on Wednesday, and then we had an AMC welcome to legislators to our Association of Minnesota Counties at our building, which many legislators had never been to, and a number of you were all there. And I just want to thank you all for coming to that reception. I think the legislators really enjoyed it and really learned a lot about our connections and our intergovernmental partnerships. So that was a great event. Then we had our first board meeting. I don't know if you want to report on that, Commissioner Mattis Castillo. If you'd like me to report on
you're the chair.
our AMC, we had an AMC board meeting. Then on Thursday was my first meeting to chair, which I was honored to do. And we covered, a lot of organizational introductory items, but the main thing was that we elected 3 representatives to our National Association of Counties. And they are Vance Sternberg from Blue Earth County, and Lisa Phoebe from Sherburne County, and Terrell Clark from Stearns County. So congratulations to those 3 who got elected by the board to be our representatives at NACO. Also, a number of us were on the League of Women Voters annual meeting with constituents, and it was great. It was a very fun event for those of us that were all there. They had a number of questions that we all got to answer, and it was just a pleasure to be with all of you colleagues who were all on the same page, but we all have a lot to offer. With all the questions, we were able to add to each other and complement each other with our work, and it was a great conversation on a lot of issues that we care about. I will say that after us, the mayors met, and the mayors that were there were Falcon Heights, Lauderdale, Maplewood, Roseville, and Little Canada. And I will say that they got the question, how do you work with the county? What is your relationship with Ramsey County. And of course, you never know what they're going to say because we're all working together. I mean, we do everything we can to work with our cities. And, but, you know, there's things that are taking more time than others. But I will say that to a mayor, and Commissioner Reinhardt and I both stayed on the call because we had mayors in that setting. And we, kudos to all of us, because kudos to the staff. They were so complimentary of the partnership that we have together. They were grateful for the economic development, for the public works, for the public safety. I mean, I'm going to let Victoria add to this because I think we were both just so grateful that they were recognizing the work that we do together. And we know there's still some challenges, but the fact that they really recognize us as such good partners. So it was wonderful. I just kudos. And thanks to the mayors of all of our cities who are doing such good work. You know, I think if they had asked us the question, we would have said the same thing. We really appreciate those partnerships. So thanks to all of those mayors. I will say that over the weekend, I went to our Long Lake Regional Park and saw ice castles. It's a very big deal, and I was just shocked at how many people are still going to that. And it's a really amazing thing. It's a little pricey, I thought, but it was pretty amazing. I mean, the thing that they can do with ice and snow, and so many people were there, so enjoying that. So thanks to our parks people for helping put that amazing event on in one of our parks. Also, I just want to say that tonight, the Canadian Consulate is having their legislative reception, which I'm going to crash because I represent Little Canada, and we always invite the Canadian Consulate to Little Canada for our Little Canada Days. So I always like to go to their reception and make sure that they know they're invited to Little Canada. So I'll be crashing the Canadian Consulate legislative meeting. And then I would say that AMC, our Association of Minnesota Counties, is having their County Government 101 session. It starts tomorrow. It'll be, tomorrow and Wednesday. It'll be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it's a great conference where almost all of the new commissioners from the state will come and learn what it means to be a county commissioner. And I know that our two newer commissioners are going to be in attendance there, and I'll get to do the welcome there. So it's very exciting. So thank you, Madam Chair, for indulging me. It was a fun week of partnerships and really connecting with with the people that are working for our constituents.
Thank you, Commissioner Guire. Commissioner Ortega.
No report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Fretham.
Yeah, so I want to thank my aide, Amy Wesselwick, for representing me at the League of Women Voters event. I was at the Community Action Partnership of Ramsey and Washington County Board meeting where we got to seat some new board members, including Commissioner Jung. So excited to have her on the board. One of our biggest challenges at GAP-RW is finding and recruiting enough teachers for our Head Start classrooms. We've had to make some challenging decisions as a board this year, including reducing our capacity to serve despite having 500 children on our waiting list because we simply cannot hire the teachers to staff those classrooms. In reducing our capacity, we were able to increase our wages for our Head Start teachers, but still struggling to get people in the door, which is why the early childhood work that we've been working on, especially as part of the Generation Next Leadership Council, is so important, and working with Representative Dave Pinto on his Great Start movement to try to increase investment in early childhood education. Currently working with Pinto and other local leaders on an op-ed to increase investment. I want to thank Commissioners Moran and McGuire for considering signing on. And if anyone else is interested, please let me know. And thanks, Commissioner McGuire, for sending me some names of other commissioners across the state. Also been working on meeting new legislators. I have new legislators in my district, so thanks to our government relations staff for setting up meetings and joining me on them. And then first Youth Justice Transformation Steering Committee meeting. So thrilled to be part of this work that former Commissioner Carter had worked on for so very long, and reviewing annual plan and goals for our next steps in that. And that is my up. Oh, and I'll just throw in a personal update. If anyone is super bored this weekend and wants to come see a play about asylum seekers, I am in a play at it'll be performing at the Wellstone Center Thursday, Friday evening, Saturday, Sunday at 2. Suggested donation of $10, but telling stories of folks seeking asylum as well as those who support them in their efforts.
Thank you, Commissioner Fretham. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you. Well, I was just going to say ditto from Commissioner McGuire, but I do have a couple of other things. But I do want to, the League of Women Voters, it was interesting as far as the way the questions were asked, but I was really proud of the commissioners and of Amy. She did a fantastic job for you. And really looking at how do we work together, and that's really what it came down to. And so it went well, and yes, I was like kind of waiting and hearing what are the mayors going to say, and every single one of them we're talking about the things that we're doing together. But the fact of the matter is, if we didn't have conflict at some point, then there wouldn't be any reason in trying to, set up those collaborations. And the one question that came up was on organics and when we're going to roll that out, the curbside organics collection. And so the one thing that we knew that we needed to do was, and I shared that with environmental health staff as well, we need to get the message out that this is what we are doing, this is the timeline, because there just wasn't enough information. And people were very excited about it and knowing that it was coming, but not really sure about that. So getting more information to folks is going to be important as we move that forward. So yes, AMC, the St. Paul delegation, the legislative delegation meeting yesterday were all really interesting, and it is kind of mind-boggling how quickly things are moving and how much the legislators are just really digging in. It's great to see, and they're hungry for information so that we can get our priorities where they need to be and signing on to the bills and everything. I think all of our staff and every commissioner sitting here is just really working hard to make sure that we're accessible and get information. If you want it here, we can get it to you as quickly as possible. So I think it's going to be an exciting legislative year. I was not able to be at the Joint Property Tax Advisory Committee yesterday because I was at the Clean Water Council. And that we have our, I know that there's a push to do annual recommendations now. There's some talk about that up at the Capitol. But honestly, I think about how we do our budget in alignment with the state's budget process, and it seems like twice as much work for the same the same thing coming out. I mean, there's always that second year where you can make changes or addendums, and that usually happens anyway, just like it does for us. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that, but there's a lot of really good work and a lot of leveraging of funds. More so than I think there has been in the past, because people are looking at this as a more holistic issue. The other thing that I want to talk about is I'm the liaison to the Ramsey County Library Board, and we had an orientation meeting, which is I think the first time they've done that. And so the County Manager O'Connor, Board Chair Modest Castillo were there, and just really having a good discussion and getting to know folks, and letting them know kind of what to expect. And then, of course, talking about the kindergarten library card event that happens this Saturday, and in the suburban Ramsey County libraries. It's always fun, and it is chaotic. So if you want to go and see a bunch of really happy kids and parents that are kind of going, you should go there. I think it's at Shoreview, isn't it?
Yes, Shoreview.
Okay. It's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. I appreciate it. And I would agree on the League of Women Voters was a really good event. I will say we were not given softball questions. It was pretty intense and hard, but I think we demonstrated our unified front and the work that we're doing in collaboration. So I think it was a great event. Also wanted to share that this week I was able to testify at the St. Paul Planning Commission. If you've seen some reports in the news, there's an ordinance proposal around height requirements and maximum height requirements in the city. We have requested to have not put those height requirement restrictions on in the urban core. I think overall the testimony went well. I was supported, of course, by our great staff, Josh Olson and Rick Howden, who did a great job as well following up with questions. The good news is that the community is really interested and they want to know more and they want to be engaged as we move this process forward. Lots of questions, not so much about the height, but they wanted to know about the project around racial equity and our engagement. And I think this continues to be a place where, we all know the work that we're doing, but we don't necessarily always message that externally. And I know Commissioner Moran and we've been talking about bonding at the Capitol, and Commissioner Ortega, that question keeps coming up around racial equity and what does that mean and how do we engage community and who is it for? So as we continue to do that work to hone that message and really lift that up, I think it's going to be incredibly important. But we'll wait to see. Open comment on the height restrictions is now closed, so it'll go back through the process there. But we feel confident. The City of St. Paul is very supportive of this project. The staff are supportive. The Friends of the Mississippi supportive. All the business councils in the downtown area were supportive. So I think that we're sitting in a good place. But just wanted to share that. Also wanted to share that tonight we have a Cleveland Avenue public meeting. It is online tonight by Zoom from 6 to 7 to get updates on the next round of that project. And again, that's Cleveland from Buford North to Larpenteur. So that's the section that we're talking about specifically. And then also wanted to share that yesterday there was a celebration held by Congresswoman McCollum roundtable for everyone who received some of her earmarks in 22 and 23. And so we were able to participate. It was a great diverse group of community members and public entities that are really working holistically across our county and Washington County and her district. So a great opportunity to celebrate with her. So today we have a short agenda this morning as we've gotten through very quickly. We will have a workshop on our Ramsey County transit portfolio at 10 here in the chambers. We're going to hold it to 10.
That sounds good.
Okay, that'll give everyone a little break here this morning to get work done and catch your breath. And then this afternoon, we're having a strategic planning working session for the county board down in room 220 in the large conference room. And so with that, our meeting is adjourned.